Welcome back, welcome back. All right, so what determines the elasticity of demand? In this video, you will learn what causes the demand for a good to be more or less elastic. All right, so our first reason is going to be about substitutes, whether or not there are close substitutes available for the good. So something that does have a number of close substitutes available, that's going to be an elastic demand. So in this example, we have oranges and tangerines. They satisfy pretty much the same desire. If you like oranges, you probably like tangerines. Now you might be in the mood for one over the other. You might prefer one over the other. But if the price of oranges were to increase and tangerines didn't, there's a good chance that you might decide to substitute tangerines for oranges because they are so similar and they, again, serve the same type of purpose for the most part if we're looking for some kind of citrus fruit to eat. So our demand for each will be more elastic, will be more responsive to price changes because as the price changes in one or the other, one will become relatively cheaper and we will substitute to the one that is cheaper. On the other hand, a good that has no close substitutes available will have much more inelastic demand. One example could be sunscreen. If you take sunscreen as a whole, so not an individual brand of sunscreen, just the item of sunscreen as a whole, there's not much else that can do that for you. So if you're going to be out in the sun at the beach all day long, you need sunscreen. There aren't a whole lot of substitutes that do that same job for you. So if you get to the beach, you don't have any, you go to one of the beachfront stores, and all the sunscreens are really expensive, well, there's a good chance you're going to buy it anyway because your demand is inelastic because there are not close substitutes available for that particular good. Another thing is going to be determining whether that good is a necessity or a luxury. If a good is a luxury, something that can easily be lived without, like this blinged out bins, that's going to be relatively or very elastic demand, I should say, because again, the price changes by a little bit. We can easily go without it. We don't have to buy it. If the price increases, we can just wait till it falls again, hopefully, or move on to something else that the price hasn't increased on. We don't need that exact vehicle. On the other hand, if somebody needs insulin, well, that's a necessity for them. And price change in insulin, well, they still need it. So they still need their insulin shots, so they're going to have very inelastic demand because we would consider that good a necessity, can't be easily lived without. So again, even when the price goes up, they're still going to buy insulin. If the price falls, they're not going to buy a ton of insulin because again, there's no need to. There isn't this huge change in the quantity demanded regardless of a change in the price. So insulin would be inelastic demand or something like that. Another thing is the share of income spent on a good. So again, the example being a car in this case, if this good, like a car, accounts for a large or a significant share of a consumer's spending, like a new vehicle purchase would, we're going to have very elastic demand. We're going to be very sensitive to price changes because it's taking up so much of our income. If the good becomes cheaper, we're going to be much more likely to buy it. If it goes up and becomes more expensive, we can't afford it, so we're going to be much less likely. So our quantity demanded will be very affected by a change in the price of a good when it's something so expensive that it takes up a large portion of our spending. On the other hand, something like table salt, it accounts for a very small share of our consumer spending. We don't buy salt very often. When we do, it's relatively cheap. That means that we're not very sensitive to the price. If you walked into Publix and you needed salt because you did run out and the price had doubled since the last time, you probably are still going to buy it anyway. If you walked in and the price was cut in half, it was half as expensive as it was before, you probably aren't going to buy twice as much salt. We have a very inelastic demand for salt, and it has such a small share of our income that we're not very sensitive to the price of it at all. Last one is going to be time. Let's start with less time first. We're going to kind of do this backwards. So you start off, you have a nice Hummer over there. You have to pay a lot for gas, right? Gas prices go up. Now initially, you're going to keep buying gas. So you have a very inelastic demand for gas because you still have to put gas into that Hummer. It's very expensive. You need lots of gallons of gas. Again, you might slightly alter your driving. You might drive a little less if you can. You might not take that road trip. So your quantity demanded of gas could decrease, but only slightly due to that higher price. So you have a very inelastic demand initially. But as time passes, guess what you're able to do? It's not that you drive less, it's that you now get rid of the Hummer and you move into a super eco-friendly Toyota Prius or something like that. And now you need a lot less gas than you needed before. So your demand for gas has become elastic as time has passed. So with time, initially our demand starts off inelastic, but as time passes, we're able to make changes that allow our demand to become more elastic. This has been a La Money production.